Reimagining Success, episode 144.
You're listening to Reimagining Success, the podcast where we help you reimagine your future, designing a life and career beyond the 9 to 5 that allows you the freedom, flexibility and fulfillment that you've been dreaming of. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg. Now, let's get started on those dreams.
Okay, hello everybody. So for this month's Escaping the 9 to 5 interview, I'm here with Tom Pullen, who is coming at us from France, which is very exciting in this day and age that people are actually in different countries. Tom, why don't we dive straight in, and can you tell us please what you were doing before in your previous corporate life and what you're doing today?
Yeah, of course. So great to be here, Anna. Thanks very much for the invitation. So I basically spent 18 years working in big corporates, big multinational corporates. So I started my career actually at Boots, which those of you based in the UK will know. So pharmacy, healthcare, beauty stores and manufacturing as well. Then I moved to Mars, so worked in the chocolate factory for about 4 years, working on some of the big brands there that you know and love. And then I spent the last 10, 11 years working for Danone, obviously famous for yogurts, but also heavily into healthy waters and obviously healthy beverages as well. And the last 5 years at Danone, I was the Global Innovation Director there, helping the business really to drive growth through new products, new business models, new services as well.
Perfect. And what are you doing today then, Tom? That sounds like the dream. The teenage me would have loved to work in beauty and chocolate and yogurt. It sounds amazing. So what was it that led you to leave that innovation role and to start something up on your own?
So actually, I think around 2016, so I'd been working there for about 18 years. And I loved my corporate life, right? I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the ability to work on big brands. I loved all of the international travel. You know, really, I feel very blessed to have had such a great corporate career that I enjoyed a lot. And it got to the stage in 2016 where I think it's because I was getting a bit older. And, you know, corporate life can often be quite cyclical. And I was going through the annual cycle again, and I thought, oh, crikey, we're going to spend a long time working on these budget presentations. And I know that, you know, we need to get them right, but maybe we're not going to deliver the plans that we kind of are going to put down on PowerPoint. And really, is this kind of what I want to spend the second half of my career doing? So I took a long, hard think, and I had some support as well from an executive coach during that time. And I decided that actually I really wanted to do something that was connected to what I was doing for the second half of my career, but in a way that did give me more autonomy, more freedom, more ability to create my own path, if you like. And so I actually left the corporate world at the end of 2016 and created my company at the very beginning of 17, whilst also starting an Executive MBA at the same time.
Oh, wow. So you didn't make it easy for yourself. But I love that you say that you so much enjoyed your corporate time, right? Because since the beginning, and I've been talking about this for many years now too, I've always been reluctant to be negative about it because there are so many advantages. And yeah. I didn't hate my job. I didn't even burn out. You know, it was sort of fine. And a bit like you, maybe just it was a bit repetitive maybe. And it was more the draw of a new challenge and something exciting, the autonomy and freedom that you mentioned. I love when you're talking about the second half of your career too, because I don't know if it's an exact halves, but certainly there are different acts, aren't there? There are different sort of seasons these days.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also the executive coach. Was that someone who your work organised for you, or did you go out and seek to work with someone?
Yeah, so during that year of 2016, I started to ask a few questions about what it was that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And Danone was, as an organization, was hugely supportive around trying to support that process of finding what I wanted to do. Did I want to stay in the corporate world? Did I want to go and do something completely different? And so they actually found for me an executive coach, a very excellent executive coach who I still work with actually. And that was really helpful because I think, especially when you've spent so long in the corporate world and so long within one company, you can become a little bit blinkered about the different options that you have. You can start to think that certain paths are closed to you, and the path that's most open to you is really a continuation of what you've already been doing. And that executive coaching actually really helped me to think much more broadly about what was possible. And I think without that transition might have been more tricky, and I probably would have been a bit more linear in what I went to do next, probably taken a safer route, which might have been good for the short term, but maybe not as exciting for the longer term.
But I think that's natural, isn't it? We're in our comfort zone, and that's what we see. As you said, if you've been 18 years in a particular sort of path, it's hard to open up and have the confidence and even just the sort of creativity and imagination to realise all the possibilities that are out there. And when you do open up to that, it's very exciting, but it can also be quite overwhelming, I suppose. How did you then narrow in on what you're doing? It sounds like there's obviously a very clear thread between the innovation, but what have you been doing differently? Can you talk us through sort of what are you working on? What are you building now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I think that the big area that my executive coach helped me with was to really challenge me on what was possible. And I guess some of the things that were a little bit frustrating at the end of my corporate life, I realized that I could kind of get rid of by starting on my own, and yet still help people and deliver the stuff on innovation that I really loved. And so that was great, and that was a real impetus to actually then creating the company that I set up at the beginning of 2017, where in essence I'm doing quite a similar type of role and quite similar types of service towards different teams and different organizations. Just now, instead of doing it just for one company and a set of different country teams within one organization, I'm now able to do that across, worked across 25, 30 different corporations across all different kind of industries. And I really love that kind of diversity of challenge, the diversity of industry, the diversity of working across lots of different teams. And so that provides a very challenging, kind of stimulating environment in which I now work.
And what were some of the challenges? So you mentioned obviously thinking perhaps a little bit narrowly initially, and you worked with the executive coach. Were there some other difficulty in going out on your own after those 18 years, working within a big corporate structure?
Yeah, I think this, you always ask yourself a question of security, right? I think whether rightly or wrongly within the corporate kind of structure, you feel very safe. And often in reality, that's a kind of slightly false safety, Absolutely. I think, because organizations do change and they do evolve. And that's going to only accelerate, I think, with everything that we've seen happening with COVID over the last sort of 18 months. But I think when you choose to kind of leave behind the company car, the pension, the bonus, all of those nice kind of trappings that come with a senior role in the corporate world, it can be a little bit scary because suddenly you have to buy a car, and I hadn't bought a car in 15 years, and suddenly you have to organize your own health insurance and your own pension. And I think if you've never done that, it can feel a bit kind of, really, am I doing the right thing? But then you realize that actually, there is a huge number of entrepreneurs out there who all just do this. And so there's so much information and support that you can get to solve these challenges that you come across. I know one of the big ones for me when I started the company was everything to do with accountancy. I'd studied, as part of my executive MBA, I'd studied accountancy, I'd studied business finance, corporate finance. And obviously in my corporate career, I was managing P&Ls and all of those kind of things. But in reality, if you've never managed the accountancy for your own company, the only way to learn how to do it is to do it. And so often at the beginning, there was that slight apprehension about, I don't know how to do this, but then you do it. And then you get better at it, and that kind of fear gradually dissolves over time.
And we laugh, but that's so important, isn't it? And, I've got my little kids who are sort of learning to, sit up and walk and so on. It's such a cliche, but they don't sort of fall over and go, oh, well, no, I'll never learn to walk. It's far too difficult. I see all these other people walking, but no, I've never walked before, so I can't do it. And it's so true. Of course, we have to, and we can. We're competent, capable people with many years under our belt, and yet somehow we don't have the confidence we had when we were naive students coming out of university thinking we could change the world. So I think there's so much to be gained by, as you say, learning as we go. Where else did you look for support? Did you need to work? I don't know, did you take any courses? Did you partner with any business coaches? What did you do to
So I kept my executive coach over that whole period of transition, and that was super helpful because it helped sort of guide not only the direction that I was taking, but also the direction of the business, and also provide a bit of kind of it's probably not the right word, but emotional support in the fact to know you've got someone who's there to get your back, right? So that was a big help to me. The Executive MBA, so I did it at HEC Paris, which is consistently ranked the #1 business school in Europe. So it was a real exciting period as well to suddenly be working with some of the best professors in the world. And I was able to do 2 specializations in innovation and entrepreneurship. So that also really helped to complement the experience that I'd had within my corporate role. With some more sort of academic structures and frameworks. And I think when you leave the corporate world, you can quite often get into this sort of imposter syndrome kind of mindset. And I think knowing that I was going to come out after 18 months with a certificate that said, yes, you are now an executive master's in how to run a business, and you've got everything to do with kind of leadership. You've understood a bit more about those things that you maybe didn't touch within your corporate career, like finance or HR and some of those things. It was a great way to transition, if you like, from the corporate world to then becoming a startup founder. And that's a big jump. And I think the executive coach and the executive MBA on top of that really helped me to make that transition in a much more, I would say, comfortable way, even though there was a lot of work to do, right?
Yes, that is a lot of work. Was that something you were doing part-time, as you said, as you were founding the business? So you were studying while you were building,
Yeah, that was a part-time modular program, actually. So it was about 1 week in physically at the campus, the university campus, every sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks. So those weeks were very intense, and then there was sort of reading and exercises to do around that. But in the time that wasn't taken up with that, obviously I was focusing really on trying to design the business and then launch the business and then deliver the different elements of the business after that.
That sounds like a great combination, because I think those of us who come from maybe more academic and corporate backgrounds have that tendency to, and I have clients who say, I've got to now retrain and I need to invest in this 4-year course before I can even start working. And of course, that's not the case. Yes, there is that imposter syndrome. And of course, yes, it builds our confidence and our credibility externally, especially when we're working with high-level corporate clients. But I think that combination of you can already start building, designing and working with clients, but then on top, you're then, as you said, a year or 2 later coming out with this additional proof for your own sake, but also then externally for that extra bit of authority and credibility.
I think the other thing that's quite interesting is, though, and HEC was particularly good at this, but I know a lot of other business schools are sort of catching up, is that they do have a business incubator that's open to any of the kind of current students or alumni of the business school. So I was very lucky in the fact that I was selected for that based on the business plan and based on the pitch that I did. And so I very quickly got taken into the world's largest startup campus where their incubator is based. So surrounded by 3,000 startuppers every single day, which really helped to accelerate the business because everyone's had the same challenges and the same questions as you've had. And so if you're really surrounded by people who've kind of going through it or have been there, then there's a huge sense of being able to help one another and actually bring everyone sort of upwards in the right sort of growth dynamic. And so that was an additional bonus, if you like, of getting into that business school world that I wasn't necessarily expecting actually when I signed up.
I think that community and the network is so important, isn't it? And having more sort of ongoing implementation, accountability support. I know when I did my coaching qualification, it was great, but we all graduate from that thinking, hey, I'm a coach, I know what to do and I can build my business. And especially those who don't come from the business marketing background are a little bit clueless. Even I put up a website thinking, ta-da, that's it. And now suddenly I'm going to get lots of clients with this totally different business. And actually having that incubator model afterwards would have been fantastic to sort of stay in touch with people and then learn as you went. And of course, get access to the mentors as well. So you talked about autonomy and freedom before. Is that what your life looks like today? Paint a picture of the dream that you're living now that you've escaped and what that looks like. What's the best part?
So in terms of autonomy, definitely. In terms of freedom, I mean, they're kind of similar, but definitely. I think if I look back over the last 4.5 years since I created the business, being completely honest, it's been a huge amount of hard work. I mean, I've worked probably more hours and invested more energy than I could have ever possibly imagined when I set up the company. And that's not because I was naive, it's just that I've never done it. I think the key difference is that because you know that you're creating exactly what you want, exactly on your terms, and that you can design that around the real needs of your clients, that makes all the difference. And so, it feels like that you're building something that has real value. And, one of the things that I love is getting really positive feedback from our clients where they feel that and they really appreciate that, because that validates, I guess, the choice that I made and the choice that I made in setting up the company that I created. So, worked super hard, but zero regrets, much more autonomy and freedom than I had before. And that's really important to me. That's one of my core values, actually, when I went through the analysis, as a lot of people do when they leave the corporate world. Autonomy and freedom were two of the biggest anchors that I had. And so zero regrets. And now I guess the dream is that we have offices about 5 minutes bike away from where I live. Where I can walk it in about 15 minutes. So I'm getting the fresh air, the exercise every single morning without any big long commute, which is brilliant. Got to work with about 25, somewhere between 25 and 30, major corporates, which I think is kind of a little bit unheard of, but also way beyond the dreams that I had when I set up. And most of those are repeating, recurrent clients, and we're consistently solving their problems. And that's what gets me up in the morning. It's not about the method. It's not about the kind of the doing the work. The question really is, are we able to deliver concrete, tangible value to our clients? And that's irrefutably yes. At every project. So super happy about that. I'm really proud of that.
Yes, you should be. Well. It sounds like you're exactly at that sweet spot. It's where you have the autonomy and the freedom and you're enjoying it and you're doing your thing in your zone of genius, as they say, your ikigai, if you've heard of that concept. You're jumping out of bed in the morning. And then on the other hand, that is entrepreneurship, isn't it? It's solving problems. So the fact that you have those 20, 30 companies, and as you said, coming back to you, it's such a testament to the fact that you really are solving their problems, and it's a great business model as well. So I guess to someone in your situation, so please go ahead, continue.
No, what I was just going to say is that the challenge there is really one of the things I've been obsessed about since the start, actually, is how do we scale that at the ability to scale it as of a digital startup. And that's kind of been a bit of an obsession of mine for the last 4 years. Nearly there. We've got some big things coming up, some exciting new projects coming up, and some big launches coming before the end of 2021. But that's really the next big challenge to crack, to make sure that we can impact more companies, more clients, and all around the world as well, because this is a global need that we're serving, and we should be able to spread, I'm not sure genius is the right word, but we should be able to spread that to a much more broad geographic community than we do today, which is primarily Europe, but with a bit of LATAM, a bit of Asia. But I'd love to see that be really, truly global.
That's exciting. Sounds
year.
like there's some big news coming up later this year. I mean, that is the next challenge, isn't it? We start off first needing to or wanting to reach, whether it's individuals or companies, but then, as you say, you hit it, and even you have a team of people as well, right, in your offices and so on. So that's exciting. That leads me to ask another question, which is, what does success look like for you then? If you're scaling, you want to be global, more countries, is there a limit to your dreams or, do you have a vision of where you want to end up? Or are you just going to see how far you can go and just keep growing and keep experimenting and solving problems?
I guess I know that there's significantly greater potential than what we're delivering today, and the last 4 years have proven that. I guess I don't put any specific limits on the dream, if you like. I've got some secret KPIs, some secret objectives that I won't share with you here. But I really hope that we can find this model that gives even more autonomy, even more freedom, and most importantly, even more increased value to our customers, which is the real obsession that we have every day. So no specifics to share with you today, but
absolutely no, I won't let you. I won't make you shed your secrets. They'll be safe. Don't worry. We won't reveal too much too soon, but exciting to see what comes next. So the question I was going to ask you was, of course, what advice could you give to someone who's in the same position as you were? Maybe, very comfortable, happy even in their role. It's fine. It's interesting, but getting a little bit repetitive, maybe dreaming of a bit more of this excitement, autonomy and freedom that you've been talking about. What could help them overcome that fear of leaving behind the security and dare to go out and see what they can create?
So I would definitely recommend teaming up with some kind of external coach, someone who's not part of the organization and who you don't have a personal link with, but can give you an objective point of view and really ask you some challenging questions. For me, as you know, that the power of a coach is really about asking questions. It's not really about providing solutions. And some of those questions, very basic questions, can be very powerful in helping you to redefine what that kind of second half of your career would look like. For me personally, the Executive MBA really helped. It helped build a lot of confidence. It helped build a lot of network. And to be honest, I just really enjoyed it as well. I loved effectively going back to school and that feeling of investing back in myself, because I wasn't sort of giving every day to my corporate organization. It was pure time based on trying to help myself and trying to invest in myself. And so that felt really good, actually. And yes, it was a real investment because these things do cost a lot of money. But I came out of it, as everyone comes out of it, really kind of feeling transformed. And I think confident that you're able to do something that maybe you weren't able to dare to do before. So I would recommend some kind of transition course or some kind of transition qualification to make you more employable if you need to go back into a more standard job, or to build your own personal confidence. And I think the last thing is, take action. It sounds crazy, but a lot of people, I think, have these kind of thoughts or dreams or ideas about what they could be doing or what they'd like to be doing. And I think the reality is that, life goes so fast and you don't often see just how fast it's going. And so I think if you have these things, don't let them drag in the back of your mind. Either decide to do them or decide not to do them. But don't let them fester, because that's when kind of regrets, I think, can happen. And no one wants to get to the end of their career and go, oh, damn, I wish I'd done that. So I would really, a coach can help with that. But if you've got ideas about how you could create something, do take the time and the effort to explore them and see whether that could be a viable next career step for you. Because in my case, at least, it was a very good step to take.
I love that. So many nuggets. I mean, the exploration is such an important step. And as you said, with the coach, being able to open up and seeing possibilities perhaps you hadn't considered before. One of my key values has been personal development. That was one that came up for me in addition to freedom, actually coming out of my corporate job. And it's so empowering, isn't it, as well, to invest in yourself, as you said, because it's something, at least I took advantage of the programs and training capability building that the company offered. But it's the kind of thing that your manager would say, you can go on this, this and what's available. But of course, now you can and should and need to invest in your own development, which, as you said, is more expensive when you have to pay for itself, but it also makes you choose really well what's going to really add value to you. And it's exciting. I mean, I used to be, I guess, a bit of a geek at school and loving the studying. So I've loved that kind of thing as well. But I love what you said, take action, because the worst thing, and again, I never want to encourage people to go one way or the other, but the important thing is to choose, as you said, because it's really, as I would say, soul destroying to want to do something about it and not do it. If you're happy, if you think it's not the right moment, then of course, stay where you are, but enjoy it. That feeling of being over here but wanting to be over there is really difficult to live with. So I think you need to make a decision one way or the other.
I think, building on your point, I think that capability building will become super important, especially within the changes that are going to happen in some of these large corporate organizations, and also the way in which they're going to sort of evolve their businesses and their business models over the next few years. Whether you're inside or whether you've chosen to be outside, investing in building your own capability, the capability of your team, is going to be a real competitive advantage going forward, and we already start to see that. So I think that's a trend that's just going to carry on and just be a roller coaster, really.
Absolutely. And it's something I've been talking about on the podcast, in fact, that the listeners all have been listening to the last few weeks, is the importance of doing that for your personal brand as well. Whether you want to now or have any thought of leaving anytime soon, it's better to build that proactively. Whether you might want a promotion later or change role or change to a different company or go out on your own, that's valuable career capital. It's great to build those relationships and networks regardless of your future. So I think that's a great reminder to, as you said, invest in yourself and whatever your future goals, to really focus on positioning yourself, I guess, as strongly as possible for whatever you might want to do in the future. Amazing. Thank you, Tom. So many insights. Absolutely. And I'm conscious of your time, but I want to let you go. But can you tell us where we can find you online? Where can we read more about your startup?
Yeah, of course. So feel free to go to the website, which is innovinco.com. So INNOVINCO. It needs a bit of refreshing, a bit of updating, but as always with startup entrepreneurial life, it's on a to-do list. But probably the best thing to do if you want to see a little bit more about what I'm up to, what we're up to, then you can check out all of our social media feeds as well. So Tom J. Pullen on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, obviously as well. Very active on LinkedIn there. And you can check out
ironically,
Innovinco,
and I come from a digital marketing background,
well.
so it's tough to say this. I find that possibly, the best companies actually don't have great websites because you don't need to, because you're so good at what you do. So, don't be too ashamed. It obviously means that you're doing something right. People come to you even if you don't think that you've got the snazziest website. So I think that's a good sign, if anything. Thank you so much, Tom. Such a pleasure, and so many useful insights there. Thank you for taking the time to share your story. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks, Anna.
If you'd like to create your own transition story and escape the 9-to-5 to work for yourself, then come and join us over in the Business Incubator. This is a comprehensive online program and community designed to give you the roadmap that you need to help you figure out what you really want to do, come up with a workable plan, and take the right steps to achieve it. Read more and join us over on onestepoutside.com/9-to-5. That's onestepoutside.com/9-to-5.